cartoon.
All right, Liberty University Korean Vietnam War, Professor Robert Ritchie. I'm William Cook. Interview here with Art. For the sake of the interview, you served Vietnam. You went 1968. You said.
I was drafted January. No, it was July 16th, 68.
Yeah.
Trained in Fort Polk, Louisiana until November. Come home for 19 days. Left for Vietnam on Friday the 13th, December 68.
So what was the process like with the draft? Because I can't imagine that nowadays.
Well, I really wasn't the draft. I was what they call selective service. I was one of the last few that went selective service.
Okay.
And the day I turned 18, the principal of the school took me down to the post office for me to sign up. And that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back home and sign up, but
Yeah.
they said at that school, when you turn 18, they take you to the post office and they sign you up. So this is a little small town in Iowa.
Okay.
And my dad wasn't real friends with anybody in that town. He'd done something, made them all mad.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was dealing with his craziness. And I finished high school. I got a job and I started college. And I was working and going to college. And I was coming home from work one night and I seen this fight in the parking lot. And I realized it was some guy just knocking the snot out of some girl. So I stopped, hopped out of my car, and I walked up there, and I knew the guy was wailing on the girl. And I said, "Man, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Stay out of it, or I'll give you what for." And I said, "No." I said, "Don't hit her again." And he goes, "Stay out of it." And he backhanded her again, and I lit into him. And even though the guy was twice my size, I gave him what for.
Yeah.
Told the girl, "Come on, I'll take you home." I took her home and dropped her off. I went to the house to change clothes. And when I come out of the house, there was a whole horde of cops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, whoa, hello. So they took me to the police station and locked me up. My dad had to come bail me out. And I went to court on Monday. And they fined me $25 and made me work on a road crew for 90 days. Even though I was working. And I went back to college and that. And I got a notice one day saying that, I could, welcome to your friends and neighbor and the President of the United States. And I was like, wait a minute, I can't be because I'm 4F. So I go down to the Selective Service Board and I go, "What's this?" "Well, Sonny, you've been in some trouble, and we feel a stint in the Army is going to straighten you out."
Wow.
But I said, "I'm in college." He says, "We don't care."
Huh.
So I decided I was going to get everything all straightened out. And I went back to Chicago, tried to get everything in order, and 2 years down the road, numerous trips to the induction center, and pre-induction, production. "We don't want you. You got flat feet. You got a heart murmur." I'm like, okay. So in the meantime, I'd met somebody and we got along really good. And I decided time for us to get married. So I had a decent job. I had dropped out of college, and we were getting married, and they sent me a induction notice. And I went down, and I said, "What's the deal?" I said, "You told me you didn't want me." "Well, this town where you came from needs to fill their quota." And I'm like, "Well, you said I got flat feet, got a heart murmur, and I have a record." "Well, now that you're 18, you don't have a record anymore." Okay. So I said, "Well, I plan on getting married July 6th. Okay. So I didn't think anything about it. While we were on the honeymoon, I got my draft notice.
Wow. Wow.
So the 16th of July, I was saluting flagpoles in Louisiana.
So, what branch did you end up going in?
I was in the Army.
Okay, what was the boot camp like?
Well, today's standards, it would have been a grade school camp. but now, you know, where they do the rigorous training and that,
Yeah.
they just processing you, getting you, you know, getting you used to weapons and, you know, people yelling at you all the time.
Yeah.
It was nothing really, but for a lot of people, it was probably pretty terrible. But, you know, since I come from Chicago, I was used to people being
Yeah.
a pain.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long was the boot camp process?
Was it 6 or 7 weeks for the first training, the basic,
Yeah.
and then I didn't know where I was going to go, and I ended up looking at the list, and I was going from South Fort to North Fort in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I'm like, ooh, Tigerland.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign.
Oh.
So I didn't tell anybody in my family that I was in infantry training while I was in the service,
Oh.
because I didn't want anybody to, you know, like, oh, you know, you're gonna get killed. You know,
Yeah.
probably was gonna get killed. Didn't know.
Yeah.
So I did 8 weeks of the rifle training and ordnance and all that other crap, and right in the middle of it, they pulled 3 of us out over there and sent us to radio school. And I'm like, what's this? Oh, you just need to know these skills. Okay, so we went through 3 weeks of radio school in the middle of all this training. Didn't think any more about it. Went back, finished out my AIT training, and got sent home for 19 days before I left to go to Vietnam.
No.
So I was like, so, you know, I don't know what I'm doing in the Army. When I get there, I'll find out. You know, I was like,
Yeah.
didn't want to get really excited. So I ended up leaving for Vietnam on Friday the 13th, December '68. Left out of Fort Lewis, Washington, flew to someplace in Alaska, and then we flew to Yokohama Air Base in Japan. Flew out of there into Cam Ranh Bay.
Yeah.
And in Cam Ranh Bay, they told us that, you know, we were going to be there for 7 to 14 days, if not longer. Okay.
Yeah.
So they also told us that we were going to be in a battalion for 7 to 14 days or longer.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's 2 months easy, you know? Like, okay, it's only 10 months in the field.
Yeah.
And then they said, when you get to your rear area, you're going to be there 7 to 14 days. I'm like, oh, great. 3 days later, I was in the field
Yeah.
because I was a radio carrier.
Yeah. The second you said that to me, I was like,
I'm like, now, wait a minute, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, so the 2 or 3 months that I thought I was going to get to
Yeah.
lay back didn't happen. I ended up, they landed me in a place called My Lai 4.
Okay.
And this is right after Lieutenant Kelly did his thing. And I say in Lieutenant Kelly's defense, there's no innocent people in My Lai 4. I know.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of friends in My Lai 4.
Yeah. I got briefed on that when I was in the military, so I'm very familiar with all. But it's a matter of what they tell you happens and what was actually happening there.
Right, and like I said, I did not see any friendlies in My Lai 4. Like I said, I lost a lot of friends, and a lot of them were closer to me than you are right now, because I had my hand on a couple of them trying to push them out of the way.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that was farther down the road. The first day that we were in the field, we got sniped at, and the bullet hit right in front of me.
So that's the other thing I was gonna, like, when you say the field,
Out in the jungle.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that we have like setups nowadays. Like you just had like these random little forts or fobs as we call them, and then you're going, you're
Right.
out. So like how many days did you spend out in the field as opposed to just like where you were stationed at?
I never was stationed anywhere. I was in the field, and we'd be out there for 2, 3, 4 months,
Yeah.
And then we get 7 days at a place they called stand down. They'd feed you steak and beer and all that. And then they send you to a hill for a week to sober up.
Yeah.
And then they'd put you back out in the field.
That was the other thing about Vietnam. In high school, our teacher's father, he served Vietnam as well, and he said Mary Jane was your best friend out there. Like, I don't know if this was just where his area was that he was in Vietnam, but marijuana grew everywhere. And
It was over 6 foot tall. The leaves were probably about that wide, and it was black. They call it Vietnamese black.
Yeah.
And you could tell who the dope smokers were, because when you walk through a field of dope,
yeah,
come out on the other side, their rucksacks would be like this big.
Now they said that they would encourage it too, because the guy, his platoon, they were encouraged to smoke it because everything was so chaotic that it was a way for people to kind of mellow out and relax while they were over there.
Well, I saw what it was doing to people,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't want to be that out of control.
Exactly. I'm the same way. I've never
I don't want to be that out of control, so I took a lot of grief for not smoking dope while I was in Vietnam.
I imagine. Yeah.
I mean, everybody's like, "What's wrong with you? You a narc?" Or well, I don't know what it,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I just don't. I don't like the smell of it. It physically makes me ill. It always has.
That's the same way. Even high school, military, I didn't want any of that stuff. I kind of wanted to have a clear mindset. But
Well, like I said, I saw what it had done to a few people over there because they were into smoking pot. They were doing heroin. They were doing Thai stick. They were doing coke, and the stuff was relatively cheap over there. I mean, you could buy a. It had to be over a pound. I don't know. They call it Papa John's J's.
Yeah.
Be a bag of 10 of them. They'd be about that big around and about that long for $2.
Goodness.
And it's like, I'm fine. I used to trade my beer for Coca-Cola. You get 2 Cokes and 3 beers every night. So I would trade my beer for Coke. And I just, like I said, I never drank until after I got home.
Yeah. So now, what did you understand your mission to be while you were out there? What was
Kill and destroy.
Okay, that's a very common what we hear out there. Is really no big picture. Was find them and
eliminate.
Yeah. Okay.
And for everyone you see, count 3 is what they told us. And
what does that mean?
so they'd have a bigger body count for the people back home that we were supposedly winning this war.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of people that was like, well, do you believe in the cause out here? And
Not
people,
really.
Like, well, what's the cause?
The cause was supposed to alleviate communism and free the South Vietnamese people from the clutches of communism.
Yeah.
But you know what? They didn't really care.
Well, that's the thing. Vietnam was literally lines were just drawn. They weren't an independent nation, maybe even 20 years at that point. I mean, questionably at that time, were they even an independent nation?
Well, they'd been under so many different powers.
Yeah.
The French were in there, and the French,
Yeah.
they left when we came in, and basically what I saw was the American government was over there taking the natural rubber and the gold, and when that got depleted, they bailed.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say that about the American government, but that's how I felt it was at the time because that's what I saw.
Yeah. So when you had liberty over there, or like a couple hours to yourself, what did that consist of? What did you find yourself doing?
All right. Never really had a couple hours because we were always out in the field and you always had to be on guard.
Yeah.
Because you could be hit at any moment. Landmines, booby traps, crazy stuff like that. And when you did have leisure time out of the field on a base, you had to worry about mortars, rockets, zapper attacks. I mean, you really just didn't have any time to really relax.
Yeah, even walking, I hear, was because they had the elephant plants or the
elephant grass.
Elephant grass.
It cut the crap out of it.
But
It's
you
like
gotta
two
walk
up
through
like
it.
razor blades.
No, that's one thing, and it's just like paper cut.
Yeah, you just,
paper
I
cut.
mean, it would just,
Yeah.
you'd walk through it and you'd really come out and like, oh man.
Goodness. See that the environment. What can you say about the environment itself? Not necessarily the enemy, but the environment of Vietnam.
A lot of foliage. We were in the mountains a lot. We were in southern I-Corps in a place called the 515 Valley, which was the first major inlet into the country from the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of NVA soldiers. We didn't have what they called VC.
Yeah.
We had uniformed soldiers we fought all the time.
Okay. Yeah. So,
But the environment, a lot of growth, a lot of green, rice paddies.
yeah.
You know, I hated rice paddies.
I hear they make you sick.
It wouldn't make you sick, but if you realize what you're walking through, because the farmers use their animals to fertilize the field,
Yeah.
and you realize you're eating this stuff,
Yeah.
and you see, like,
I hear it was worse in Korea because it was fermented in essentially human waste.
it was, yeah.
So that they would get
they
a
used the
lot of-
animals and stuff, but
Yeah, a lot of people would suffer the intestine.
it was like going back over 100 years in time. No toilets, no lights, no communication other than the radio I carried.
Yeah. Did you know any of were there any friendly locals? I mean, I know you said first place you got there was no friendlies, but did you ever meet any friendly any?
I did when we would walk the Red Ball or Highway 1 over there.
Yeah.
There was they called these Coke kids, and they'd come along and they'd sell you Coca-Cola, ice cold Coca-Cola. And at the time, a can of Coke was a dime, right?
Yeah.
And they told us when we got there that we'd be buying this for $1. Like, yeah, right. After you walk 8 clicks in 130-degree heat, little kid goes, ice cold Coca-Cola, $1. Give me 2.
My goodness.
It was like, oh man.
Yeah. Okay.
And the problem is the beer and the Coke were the same price.
But you took the Coke.
Yeah,
you preferred the Coke.
I never liked the taste of beer.
Yeah.
Even though after I got home, I drank a lot of it, but I didn't like it.
So, yeah, you said that you got the sniper fire like 2 feet in front of you, or like when
Yeah,
you first
it
got
went
there,
through
right?
the guy in front of me. It went through the crotch of his pants and hit the ground in front of me.
So what? I mean, I know you grew up in Chicago. I
It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, I lived there too, but I can't imagine being in a foreign land and then being shot at on top of that. It's, and you and I talked before. You said you've been shot.
I was wounded 5 times, and none of them real bad.
Yeah.
If it had been an inch the other way, it'd have been pretty ugly.
Yeah. Can you talk about that? I remember you talked once to me about you had to rescue a bunch of people. I can't remember the exact story.
We were the first firefight I was in. We'd been pinned down for about 6 hours,
Yeah.
and I was running out of ammo. Battery on the radio was getting low, and reinforcements come up behind us. And when they got to us, they stopped them with powerful amounts of fire. It was, and this guy got shot 3 times, and he fell right next to me. And he was bleeding from the elbow, the hip, somewhere else he was hit. And we had to get him out of there. So we picked him up, even though we were getting shot at a lot. Had air support. First time I'd seen a Cobra. What a beautiful sight after you've been laying on your back for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Going, am I going to get out of here?
Yeah.
Laying in a peanut field. So we pick up the guy and we start carrying back. And they put us down once with the amount of firepower they had. And they brought an APC up, Armored Personnel Carrier. And we picked him up and put him in this personnel carrier. And then they backed us up and we put him on what they call a dust-off, which was a helicopter, basically an ambulance.
Yeah.
And as we put him on the ambulance, I took a 51 caliber across the cheek, and it just skinned me.
Yeah.
And it hit the pilot's seat, and it went through the seat, but it didn't hurt the pilot real bad. And the pilot took off with the wounded guy. And then we finally pulled out that night, and we'd lost 17 people that day and had a bunch wounded. I don't know how many wounded.
Yeah.
And they took us back to tell it, to debrief us on what we saw, because we made the first initial contact and was able to get out and see what it was. And I was sitting there and I was talking to the colonel, and I'm looking at my clothes, and I'm like, Colonel come over and look and said, what is it? And I says, I don't know. And he looked at me and he said, oh, them bullet holes.
Bullet?
I'm like, really?
Wow.
And I had the scratch on my cheek.
Wow.
And I was like, well, he said, he said, got a close one there. I was like, okay. Wasn't bleeding, but it was burnt.
Wow.
And then, I forget what, man, it was a horrible day.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost, the whole first platoon was basically wiped out between dead and wounded.
Yeah.
And I was in the 3rd platoon, and we were the first ones to arrive on the scene after the initial ambush.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever seen a real enemy.
Yeah.
They were sitting down in a hole.
How close were you to them?
I couldn't reach out and touch them.
Really?
I walked up on them, and I looked, and they were uniformed, and I was like, so I got Sergeant over there, and I pointed, and he looked down, and he goes, shoot him! And that's the first time I'd ever opened fire on a human being.
Yeah.
And I was sick. I got physically ill. I did not.
Yeah, I hear. I've never had to. So.
Yeah, I did want to, but it was either kill or be killed, and it never got any easier. Trust me.
That was my next question. Because obviously that happened soon in your tour, early in your tour, I imagine. And then you got to go do it again.
Yeah, and I hated it. I really wanted to go home. I really wanted to get sent to Leavenworth. I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. Now see, after you went through this ambush and your platoon, you said was pretty much.
The 1st platoon was gone. 3rd platoon, we didn't lose anybody at that point.
Yeah.
But the 1st platoon, they were pretty much wiped out.
Now, so what happened to the individuals afterwards? Did you guys just meet up with another platoon? Did you bring in replacements?
They brought in new recruits and whatnot, and then they moved people around to get, people who'd been there, longer than these new guys. And they basically tried to balance out the platoons with, with experienced people.
Okay.
It's an experience that,
you
just like, why me?
Right. Now, entertainment-wise, because Bob Hope and everybody coming doing their USO tours, he kind of started that. Were you one of the people that got any of that?
No.
No entertainment?
Absolutely not.
No?
Yeah.
See, did you hear rumors about it while you were around?
We knew they were there.
Yeah.
But we were so far out and in the field.
Yeah.
That,
we
never got to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew Bob Hope was coming, and I heard he was coming to Chulai, and that's where I was taking my training for the area that I was going to be in.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, gee, I'm going to be here 7 to 14 days after I'd only been in Vietnam a couple hours and went there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so I went through my area operation training for the kind of landmines, booby traps, and type of people we were fighting.
Yeah.
And I got shipped out of there in 3 days. I'm like, what's this?
No.
And then we got to the base camp where it was Bravo Company 1st to the 20th in a place called Duc Pho, South Vietnam. And Charlie Company was where Lieutenant Kelly come from. And so anyway, we get there, I get off the helicopter, and I walk across the chopper pad, and there's a E8 standing there. And he wanted to know why my boots weren't bloused. And what are you talking about? He said, you got to blouse your boots. And I'm like, we're in a combat zone. I said, a couple hours ago, I was in training,
Yeah.
crawling through mud and, mud and sand and crap, and I said, and they put me on a helicopter and sent me here. He said, well, he said, go over to supply, get your weapon, get your radio. He said, get back here. He said, you're going out. And I'm like, huh? So I didn't even get to spend the night there. I got to Duckflow. They didn't even give me anything to eat. They just gave me an M16, a radio, and some sea rations, and sent me on the chopper pad. And by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was out on the beach by the Red China Sea, outside of Me Life 4.
Yeah.
And I had no clue where I was at, what I was doing, where I was going.
Now, did you fight alongside just Americans, or did you anybody else? Like indigenous?
A couple of times we fought alongside the Arvins.
Yeah.
There were some that truly were dedicated to freeing Vietnam of communism.
Yeah.
But most of them were just there because the military made them go. They didn't want to be there any more than I did.
Yeah. So now, like step back a little bit. Communism. I'm a millennial, so I hear communism built up, from studying Reagan and the Korean War,
right,
and the Cold War. What was communism to an American citizen at that day? Like, what did you perceive it to be? Was it?
It basically was socialism.
Yeah.
Where everybody was taken care of by the government, but you had to answer the government for everything you did. And everything you made, you had to give the government, and they wanted these people to be free. But most of the people over there were happy with growing rice and making, an average yearly income when I was there for a person that worked every day in the rice paddies was $7 a year.
Okay.
So, they didn't know what TV was, they didn't know what toilet was.
Yeah.
The only time they saw electric lights is when they were, on a base.
Yeah.
So, they had no clue to what they were missing.
Now, was it perceived, because the picture painted from the 80s, from when I was studying Ronald Reagan, was that it's evil. Communism is evil. And
that's what they wanted you to.
Yeah.
But a lot of people look at the American government as evil.
Yeah.
You got other countries, since I was a born and raised Democrat, but I haven't voted Democrat in years because they scare me. Mm. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't even be talking about this.
You're fine.
But, it just, I never got too much into American government. I was just riding along.
Yeah.
And then I started, I guess after you get older, you start looking into stuff. And I'm like, Nixon tried to expose what the Democrats were all about back at Watergate. And maybe someday they'll show him as a hero trying to expose the stuff that came out in this election.
Yeah.
Democrats basically, I don't know, they're not like they used to be back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. It just...
Reagan was famous. He grew up a Democrat and he made the switch, and I know he was big in the fight against communism here on American soil. And with Vietnam being, similar to Korea, it's trying to stop the spread of communism.
Right.
It's just what was the perception, because Vietnam also, I call it, the hippie era. Back home, everybody, this is really the first time you got mass exposure of protests of.
First time the war was ever televised.
Yeah.
Right up to right now, it wasn't a week or two delay or something that come out in the paper. This was something that was on the evening news every night.
Yeah.
And American people saw. I have to say the media played a part in making the Vietnam War so bad because they showed only the bad stuff that was done over there. They didn't show the good stuff that, where, we help people. Mm-hmm. You didn't see any of that on late 60s and 70s TV. You just saw the bad stuff that happened.
Yeah. Well, I think correlation can definitely be made today about, you know, what exactly the part media plays in perception.
The media is evil.
Yeah, that's what I'm glad you said it.
The media is evil. I don't watch the news anymore. I read, you know, I've got some friends that were in intelligence in the Army, and they show me on the computer where to go to read the real news.
Yeah.
And, you know, the media right now, they're lambasting Trump about all the stuff he's doing. But if you look in a different place, you see all that he's done, all his promises he's made, all the promises he's kept.
Yeah.
Now,
like, as a soldier in Vietnam, were you aware of how the media was portraying you?
No, we did not know anything.
Yeah.
When I got home, I was blindsided by all that went on about how much we were hated. Because as soon as I got off the airplane in Chicago, I was waiting for my family to show up. And I had this young girl walk up to me, spit on me, call me a baby-killing SOB, and I'm like,
sorry. I was like,
what's going on? And then after I get out of the hospital,
yeah.
I start reading the paper, and I'm just totally, because when we got the papers in Vietnam, there'd be half the pages missing where they cut stuff out to not let you know about what was going on in the United States.
Because being in the field, did you get letters from home? They find you guys?
We did, but I never said anything about what I was doing over there.
Now, did they tell you anything about what was going on at home?
Just like, hey, you know, I miss you. I want you to, want you back. But I never wrote them that I'd been in any kind of action, any firefights, anything around where. And the night we walked through the minefield, we lost 51 people. And I was the only one that made it back. So I've been dealing with survivor guilt most of my life.
Yeah.
Because I lost a lot of friends, and I had people get killed sitting shoulder to shoulder with me, and I never got touched. And it just like, why me,
Yeah.
And I still deal with survivor guilt every now and then, and it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
And, why did this guy get killed? Why didn't I? And he was standing in front of me, and he took the bullet, and I didn't get it, and it's just like, and it's a bad thing. I mean, post-traumatic stress is a bad thing. I've controlled my post-traumatic stress really good. It was real hard.
Yeah.
I trained myself not to jump when somebody made loud noises.
Yeah.
It was, it was very difficult. And, but like I said, my post-traumatic stress stuff, I got it under control. I get along with my family. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs.
Yeah.
I live alone. And I try to keep a tidy house.
Yeah. And
I don't try to do anything bad or evil. And my hobby is building race car stuff. And and I do that. But I don't like big crowds. I don't like a lot of people around. And,
yeah, no, same here, but probably
so,
for different reasons. Yeah, I don't like it.
One or two people's fine, but you get, I guess it's from the Army. We didn't like big crowds because you get the big crowd, you're going to get shot,
grenade,
mortar, or something. Yeah,
and easy target. You disperse. Yeah. So when you heard you were coming home, how did you hear? Like, did you already know prior when you were coming home?
I knew about when I was going to come home.
Yeah.
But usually they tried to pull you out of the field like 3 months early and, get you all set up in the rear area to do something like driving a garbage truck or something like that.
Yeah.
And I never got that opportunity.
Really?
I was in the field up until the last day before I came home. And on the way in, we got in a firefight.
Wow. Well, now what was going on?
I was supposed to be going home in the morning, and I'm in the field in a firefight with NVA soldiers.
Wow. Well, what was going through your head there? Like, of course,
I did what I was trained to do. I tried to put down a base of fire to suppress the fire coming from the position they were in. And I don't know, I just did what I've been doing for a year.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the fact that I was going home in the morning.
Yeah.
And in the process, I ended up killing 2 soldiers. And in the process, I ended up killing one with his own weapon because he had shot my weapon and disabled it. And I was like, it never really bothered me until after I got home. I didn't even think about it.
So you mentioned that killing someone never gets easier.
No.
But at some point, does it start to be like? Do you think about it less during the process, or is everything, or is it all the same?
At that point, after being in the field for 12 months and being in many a firefight, zapper attacks, firefights, ambushes,
Yeah.
Online assaults, it's something that I could never imagine before I went there.
Yeah.
And it just became automatic to what you had to do.
Yeah.
And it was, the last time I was doing it as self-preservation because I wanted to go home.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about these 2 individuals. I didn't think about their families. I didn't think about nothing. I just did it.
Yeah.
And in the process, where the magazine goes in M16, it took a bullet and it jammed the magazine. And, my weapon was disabled.
Yeah.
And it ended up grabbing one that was on the ground and
Yeah.
took his life with his own weapon.
Yeah.
And then I took the 2 weapons, the 2 handguns, the ID, and the North Vietnamese currency they had on them, and walked into the base camp and threw everything down on the supply sergeant's desk to go, here you go. And he goes, you take any of this home? I said, nope. I said, sign me out. I'm going home in the morning.
Yeah.
And he said, what are you going to do now? I said, I'm going to go learn how to drink. I went and had 1 beer, come back. Got up in the morning, couldn't even get a ride to the airport. That's how much they cared about you. I couldn't even get a ride to the airport. I walked to the airport, got on the C-123 and flew to Cameron Bay.
Wow. Now, you talked a little bit about coming home and the reception. Just go over, in general, your first week being home. Like, as you said, it's kind of like a culture shock. Like, these people hate you, and all, you had no idea.
No, even the military hated us. When I got back to Fort Lewis, Washington, and we were at the airport trying to get home, the MPs wouldn't let us sit down. They wouldn't let us sleep. I mean, we'd already been up for days.
Yeah.
And we couldn't sit down. We couldn't sleep. And, I mean, they were just mean.
Yeah.
Just flat dirt mean. I mean, it's like...
Yeah.
And then I get to Chicago. And like I said, I'm standing in Chicago O'Hara waiting for my family to come because I had malaria so bad I knew it, and I wanted to see somebody I knew.
Yeah.
And I did okay. I got through the malaria attack and everything was fine. I went home and I was with my family and everything. And on the weekend they had a surprise welcome home party.
Yeah.
And that's when I got my second malaria attack, and that's where I ended up in the hospital.
Okay.
I went in the hospital weighing 127 pounds, come out weighing 104 pounds.
Wow.
And spent 30 days at home before I went back but I got TDY'd to Fort Sheridan, which is 2 blocks from my house.
Yeah.
And I spent the last 7 months working for a general.
Wow. So when you mentioned that you started drinking when you came home.
Mm-hmm.
Was that like to cope with anything, or you just decided to drink?
Just trying to forget.
Yeah.
Just trying to, because when I first got home, it all bothered me. I went from fighting for my life every day to coming home to fighting for my job, fighting,
Yeah.
and so I drank to cope with that. And I drank quite heavily for, well, let's see, from 1970 to 1989, I drank quite heavily. I drank every day.
Yeah.
But I never was an alcoholic, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
But in 1989, I set the beer down. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah. Just one day decide.
Just I like that's enough of that craziness.
So what was sleeping like afterwards? I mean, was
Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. I still have problems sleeping.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I mentioned my history teacher in high school. It was like you don't wake him up. Nobody, everybody knows.
You can wake me up because, like I said, I've got my post-traumatic stress pretty much in hand.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you that's Chris.
Pause
Hang on a second.
So we talked about you picked up drinking and then you decided to stop. The other aspect of coming home, celebrities were heavily involved. Jane Fonda.
We don't talk about her.
Yeah, okay.
That word is not mentioned at my mother's house.
Yeah.
My mother hates the woman. My mother found out what I did while I was in Vietnam.
Yeah.
It freaked her out. She thought I was just over there. She didn't know I was in the fighting, and she'd heard about, losing all these people in this landmine thing that one night. And she wrote me a letter one time and asked me about, do you know anything about it? And I'm like, no, Mom, don't know nothing about it. And I spent 7 days in Hawaii in the hospital.
Yeah.
And went back over, and like I said, I think I was the only one that made it back out of the 51 people that were wounded or killed.
Wow. So what exactly happened?
Landmine. 2 landmines and a helicopter.
Now, I know this sounds like a dumb question, but it's one I think everybody... How loud was the landmine?
I lost my hearing.
Yeah.
I learned how to read lips. I got hearing in this ear. I got a constant ringing in this ear.
Yeah. Still or?
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm almost 80% deaf in this ear and 50% deaf in this ear.
Yeah.
I mean, it was loud. I mean, it happened like somebody set the firecracker off right next to your ear. It was that loud. And the concussion from it, I think that's what saved me, blew me forward.
Yeah.
And the helicopter, when it blew the helicopter up, it flipped upside down and landed right behind me. And the rotor blade come around, and with me being blown forward, the rotor blade hit the guy that was sitting next to me.
Oh, man. Wow. That's, okay.
It wasn't pretty.
I can't imagine. Now, what was going on during that? Were you in a fight already, or were you guys just walking?
We had a bunch of new officers, and this is my one big complaint about the military. Just because the guy's an officer, he supposedly got all this power. And we were, at the time, I was the oldest person in the field. I was, age-wise, I was older than most people because I was 20 before I even got drafted.
Yeah.
And we were walking, and this guy said, we're going to go up on this hill, this new lieutenant that we got to replace the ones that we lost in the ambush.
Gotta love a new lieutenant.
We're going up on this hill. And I says, no, I don't think we should. I said, we've been up there too much before. Now we're going up on that hill. I said, no, I don't think we should. And I turned around, I told everybody, I says, we'll go up on this hill. I says, watch where you walk. I said, we've been up on this hill too much. And I said, we're going back up there again. And we got up on that hill, and the platoon sergeant stepped on the first landmine, and it just, I mean,
yeah,
people and parts were flying everywhere. And then I went to grab my radio and started calling for dust off. And we got the first dust off out there, and we picked up the dead and wounded and put it on the helicopter. And as it was taking off, the one medic reached up to wave goodbye. Well, it gets so dark in Vietnam, you couldn't be in a closet with a blanket pulled over your head. It would never be that dark. Mm-hmm. He stuck his hand up and he stuck it in the rotor blade of the helicopter. And he sliced off 4 fingers. So we had to call I tried to call the other dust off back, and he says, I'm too full, I can't take another person. So I sent another one out. They sent some guy out that hadn't flown at night much. And when I told him, don't land. I said, hover. Just hover. I gotta land. I said, no, you don't. I said, we're in a minefield. I said, don't land. And I'm watching him. I'm telling him where he's at because I'm trying to guide him in like if I was flying a helicopter.
Yeah.
I said, all right, you're fine where you're at. Just stay where you're at, hover, and we'll get this wounded guy on there. And he goes, I gotta land. I said, no. He set that skid down, and he started across the ground like this, and I saw the flash. And
Yeah.
and then it got real ugly after that, and ended up, it was 11 or 12 killed, a whole bunch of people wounded really bad.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of new recruits that just got there that day. They all sent them home to the rubber room. They all lost their minds. I mean, it was just too much for them. They're fresh out of the, first day in the field, in a minefield, saw all these people get killed. They lost it.
Yeah.
And I was angry because we were laying there after it was all over. I could hear the NVA in the valley laughing at us. I just wanted to get up and walk out there, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so the next morning, they come and they cleared the hill. We got the rest of dead off the hill. And I stayed in the field for 3 more days before they took me in. I had shrapnel in my shoulder. I couldn't hear out of this ear.
Yeah.
And
You mentioned like don't go up there. We've been up there too much. Was that because you knew they would recognize your guys' pattern?
oh, they'd watch us. They knew
Yeah.
everything we did. They weren't stupid.
Yeah, that was my.
I mean, they'd been trained for war for over 200 years.
Yeah.
They knew. I mean, they knew. I have to give it to them. They're military.
Yeah.
They were much more dedicated to cause than we were. Because you had a bunch of people over there that were drafted, taken out of college, taken out of life. A lot of people that were there at the time were people that had been in trouble.
Yeah.
And they got sent there to, quote, get your life straight. And they were just there to,
Yeah.
smoke dope, do what they had to, and I don't know if you ever saw the movie with Michael J. Fox,
Yep.
Casualties of War.
Yep.
I got pictures of the 4 guys that did it.
Really.
I knew all 4 of them. And that wasn't the first time they tried to do it.
Yeah. Wow.
And the guy that ratted on him that Michael J. Fox played, he was, I don't even remember where he was from, but afterwards, so many people tried to kill him for ratting on these guys.
Yeah. I think he was a San Francisco. I think he was a California guy.
Yeah, but anyway, I got pictures of him.
Yeah.
Tall, skinny, blonde-headed guy, and they kept him doped up for 3 months before they finally shipped him home. But these 4 guys, they blew up a hut that he was in. They blew up the crapper with him.
Yeah. Yeah, they tried. They didn't want him getting out.
Anyway, and then but the woman that they killed, it wasn't a local.
Yeah.
They went to, and this is the bad part. I probably shouldn't be telling you this,
You're
but
fine.
they went up to the village and they picked up a hooker and brought her back, and they promised her $20 a piece for the weekend.
Yeah.
The weekend come to an end. They done spent all their money on dope.
Yeah.
So they took her back out and presented a false ambush and killed her, so they didn't have to pay her. And this other guy that was there, who had absolutely nothing to do with any of it,
Yeah.
he ratted on him.
Yeah.
And like I said, I got pictures of him, and
Yeah.
it just,
Well, it's like I think the title of the movie, Casualties of War, it's people aren't really their right mindset out there. It's and I don't mean to sympathize with them. It's messed up, but it's being in Vietnam. It's
that gave guys a lot of power to do stuff that they could never do in the United States. They could go out and they could kill, get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
They could rob, which a lot of guys did. They'd go into the village and they'd take the people's gold and stuff, and they'd send all that stuff home. And I always said that's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it was such a goody two shoes while I was there.
It could be that you kept your mind straight. Like the first thing you talked about, you didn't do the drugs, you didn't smoke you didn't drink the beer. You kind of kept a clean mindset, which is almost impossible to do, given the circumstances.
I guess my grandmother had a lot to do with that because my family, my mom's side was Catholic, my dad's side was Baptist.
Yeah.
And when we moved to Iowa, my grandma, she dragged me to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Whether I wanted to go or not.
Yeah.
And, and she was a good woman. She went to church every Sunday of her life.
Yeah.
She married to one person all her life. The woman never drove a car, not once, not ever sat in a driver's seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, never once.
Wow.
She'd ride in the car, but she wouldn't drive it because I have no interest in driving.
That's good.
Yeah. But my grandmother probably was a good influence on me because she was what you'd consider a good woman of faith.
Yeah. Well, likewise. Yeah, that's my upbringing, my grandma. So it's like why I was for the most part able to stay away from all the bad crap that goes in the military. Yeah. There's a lot of while good people go in, there's also a lot of just bad people that go in the military. So they got nothing else to do.
Right. Nowadays, the military is kind of pick and choose. Mm. But back in the Vietnam days, they took anybody that would go.
Yeah.
Anybody could do this.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody says, "Oh, you're gun crazed." I'm like, I'm not gun crazed. I own a few.
Yeah.
But I don't have any intentions to ever take them out and use them on anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, they're for my protection. If somebody comes that doesn't need to be here, they come into my house to try to do harm, and they're not a reasonable person, I'm going to do what I can do. Yeah.
Now, while you were there, again, to bring up the 60s, peace, the symbol. What was? Did you serve with anybody that was about the peace and loving?
Everybody had peace signs on their helmets, but we didn't know what was going on back in the United States. We didn't know that there was a free love and all that stuff going on. We didn't know all this stuff.
Yeah.
We get back, like I said, the military radio didn't tell you anything, and you only had military television when you were in a safe area.
Yeah.
And then when you got to Hawaii, most of that was military controlled, so you didn't get
After losing your first fellow soldier, did it become more difficult to build relationships with people next to you?
It's still difficult to build a good relationship because every time I made a friend with somebody, they got killed.
Yeah.
And it made it really difficult. And then when I got home, I had friends, and they go behind my back and they tell my wife I was cheating on her even though I didn't.
Yeah.
And when I married my wife, she was just kind of a plain Jane little girl.
Yeah.
But after I got back, I'd been back about a year or two, she turned into probably one of the most beautiful women you'd ever wanted to see. Yeah. And I was like, she's with me? But it got to the point where everybody was, even if I was with her, they'd hit on her.
Yeah.
And I'd like, stop it, quit it. And it got to the point where, I had to fight for everything.
Yeah.
And so I started hurting people, and it made her mad, and she went away.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm really hard to pick and choose friends.
Yeah.
And I always made this pact, with myself, I would not date anybody's of my friends, ex-girlfriends or ex-wives, and I never have.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I never hit on any of my buddies' girlfriends or wives.
Good. Yeah.
And, you know, I just like, I'm like you. I try to treat people like the way I want to be treated.
So, final question. Summarize Vietnam from the beginning to adjusting to life. If you could just summarize it.
I really don't know. I know that Eisenhower put advisors in it. The French were there. And then we came in, and Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson escalated the war. And it was supposed to be about communism, but I didn't see that. I did not, because we'd go in and we'd take an area, and we'd give it back. We'd go in and take that area again, lose more people, and take it back. And the whole time down around Saigon, the American government or the American civilians were taking all the gold and stuff from Vietnam, all the natural resources, and like I said, we were over there fighting people, and it was supposed to be for communism, but I believe in both parts it was in self-preservation on both halves, because we were there and we were told we had to do it. Yeah. But it was just a cluster. It actually was. It just a total military mess.
Yeah. It was the first war without a declaration of war.
Well, they called it a police action, and when we came home, we weren't supposed to get benefits because it was a police action, just like Korea was.
Yeah. That's
even though they called it a war, but it was a long, hard road. It still is. There's a lot of people out there that are a lot worse off than I am, and you know, I believe Trump's going to do something for everybody. I believe he's going to help us out in our VA health care.
Yeah.
I believe that, you know, and I was reading something the other day where the VA is really concerned about homeless vets. In 2011, there were 65,000 homeless vets.
Yeah.
And I was reading about all these abandoned houses around the country because, you know, let some of these people have these houses, let them fix them up, give them a place to live.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm just lucky that I got what I have because I worked all my life and I saved a little bit. And, you know, I've got a place to stay. I got a little money, you know, so.
Yeah.
Of course, I probably save that because I don't drink or smoke.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This is great.
I hope it's good for you. I mean, you know, like I said, I've tried not to make it look ugly or.
Well, I mean,
you know, I'm not a bitter person about what I did.
Yeah.
If I had to do it again, I would.
Yeah.
I'd rather do it in something that was more.
That's what I always say. Like, I'd rather me do it. Somebody who's, you know, willing. You know, that's why I joined the military. I kind of had that conversation. I was fortunate to never have to go into combat, but I always said if it's going to be me or somebody else, I'd rather it be me because
my mother is a very proud woman because all her kids have served in the military. Yeah. All her grandsons have served in the military. Her brother served in the military. Yeah. And she's very proud about that. She doesn't know that I'm the only son that was ever in combat because I never told her that I was anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was one thing I probably would have kept secret. I like to think, you know, I would have toned it down.
Nobody's ever seen the pictures of me. Yeah. I mean, the only picture I got is one of where I think I showed you. Yeah. July 3rd, 1969, while I was in the hospital in
yeah.
Just a young, short-haired, like, what am I doing here person.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.